basically why I wanted to do this podcast was I felt like so many of the conversations with individuals and business owners and talking about people's journeys always talk about like the highlight moments, if you will. So
Right.
talking about the times that like I sold my company for $3 million, like after working for a month, like those type of things. Like I really wanted to sit in the moments that were uncomfortable for not only the person, but maybe uncomfortable for our listeners a little bit. Make people realize that, you know, sometimes when you take the path less traveled, you can feel really alone. So I'm hoping that people can look at other people's journeys and realize that they're not alone and try to see what other similarities that maybe people have in their stories and their paths. And maybe there's not any paths, and you know, who knows what's going to resonate with people.
A lot of people think that there's not a path sometimes when there is. Like
Exactly.
It doesn't make sense. But also we're at a time in the world now where pain into triumph sells, and people that have kind of a disaster story that get beyond it, people are more open to transparency. And
which is great.
You're at the right time.
Definitely. Well, I mean, I didn't even introduce you, Doug Marshall. Our first guest. I have a story about how I first started following you. I was thinking about after our first conversation. I don't think I told you this, but Doug's from my hometown. You've lived in my hometown in Minneapolis, originally from Connecticut, moved to New York, been all over the place, those type of things. But I found you because of Minneapolis, and you love to dance.
I love to
And
dance.
this is what really got me and was like, I need to follow this person, get to know this person. But I also think that there's a little bit more to you. So the reason that I love your dancing, I grew up dancing my whole life, and your dancing is what I call my Phoebe Buffay moment.
Oh.
So if you are you a Friends fan?
Of course.
Of course. So I love when she's going jogging with Rachel, and she has her own style of jogging, and Rachel gets all embarrassed and she's like, oh, I can't jog with Phoebe. This is so embarrassing. But then Phoebe's like, no, this is who I am. This is what makes me happy. And that's how I feel how your dancing is. And it's just part of you overall. So that's what really like brought me to Doug Marshall.
Oh my God, I love you for that. Well, it's funny, now that I live in LA, I want to take like dance classes because there's good dance studios here, and I want to learn like these choreographed moves and really take it to the next level. But I've done a ton of research around dancing, and when you're dancing freestyle, when it's not a choreographed move, it's mindfulness, because you're so present in that movement of your body because you're not thinking about the next step, and it's actually very freeing. So there's merit behind my goofy Phoebe Buffay moves that are completely made up, like the traveling shit show. But I want to do both.
Well, the funny thing is growing up a dancer, I was so comfortable with choreographed routines that I have such a hard time just freestyle dancing, because I'm like, no, like I need a routine. Someone give me a routine. If you give me a routine, I will absolutely dance the shit out of it, and it'll be so fun. But that freestyle movement, that's something that I definitely struggled with like early on, but still I think today if someone was like, just dance, you're a dancer, I'm like, I can't do that. That's weird.
That is so funny that you say that, because I sometimes walk into stores, and if there's good music playing and if I see an associate kind of bopping, I'll be like, will you dance with me?
I love that.
And I went into Urban Outfitters recently, and I got permission from the manager, and then like 4 associates were dancing with me. There was one girl that like could not move, and she felt so constricted, and I'm like, just go with it. And she's like, I'm literally on the cheerleading team at Pepperdine. She's like, I can do every routine. And she's like, I can't move without a routine. So it's funny that you say that. Some people need the routine.
Yeah, totally. It's like some weird control thing. But, you know, I think that's like a journey of letting that go too, which is great. But so today you live in Los Angeles. You're new to Los Angeles. I'm so excited.
Los Angelino.
So excited.
It's been 2 months.
It's been a great full 2 months.
Yes.
But this was not your original path. You grew up in Connecticut. You went to Boston College.
I went to Boston College.
What'd you major in Boston College?
Finance.
Finance.
I was a finance major. I'm from a part of Connecticut where most people's parents seem to be doctors, lawyers, bankers, and every now and then you had like the one creative like parent that was like in advertising. And so everybody was looking at schools and picking their schools, and it's like, oh, I'm going to be pre-law, I'm going to be pre-med, I'm going to do this. half of the people wanted to do finance. So every school I applied to their school of management because my dad did like financial stuff, accounting stuff. And I'm like, this is what I'm supposed to do. My sister went to college, Boston College. She studied accounting. This is what you do. You just do what other people do.
Did you want to do it, or you was just like, this is what I do?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Because I thought I wanted to. It's like when you're in a labyrinth and you can only go certain ways. Like you don't know looking from an above view. You only see what you're seeing in a labyrinth. I was just following along. I was following the path of the walls.
What else did young Doug Marshall like love when you were still?
What did young Doug Marshall love?
Was there like hints of what you're doing today in your early life?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so as a young gay kid growing up who was also bullied for being gay, I had all these like escape kind of behaviors or fantasies. So my sister, when we were like 8 years old, we started playing house. And we were sisters, and we were British sisters, and we were older. It wasn't like we're like both like 9 and 12 or whatever. And we pretended we lived in London and that we lived in a flat and that our parents were our servants. And then that morphed. Like after a couple years, my sister and I stopped playing it. I was playing it on my own.
Okay.
And we were Anne and Heidi, but then I became like their child. I was Sandra Schilling. I was a 40-year-old woman. I chose the last name Schilling because I had a crush on this guy in my grade, Michael Schilling. And I didn't just have like a life. I had a fucked up, self-destructive life.
You created that
I'm
fucked
like
up life
10 years old
yourself.
at this point, and I know nothing, right? I had 4 kids. One of them, as Sandra happened from ages of 8 to 18.
Okay.
Like she was I don't have multiple personality disorder, but it was a coping mechanism. I see it now, but it was highly creative and super interesting. But she had this crazy drama-filled life. Her husband killed himself. She was about to get a divorce. He killed himself. I literally put red food coloring in the bathtub and was like hosing it down, fake sobbing to myself. There's nobody else there. Thinking, how am I going to tell the kids?
Yeah.
You know, when I was older, my daughter Pauletta was like maybe 15 or 16, you know, and I'm probably that age at this point. And she was into drugs. She got pregnant. I was raising the kid. It was like every drama-filled thing. I think I grew up around my mom who watched like Lifetime television for women. But basically, I would spend so many hours like imagining being Sandra, being in this life, and it was a comfort for me, but at the same time it was like highly creative. Mm-hmm. I mean, so I once told somebody about this, and they're like, this could be like a play on Broadway. I was
gonna say you could write this into
little
something.
Boy, but then you slip into this woman in her 40s, and it could literally be. I mean, yeah. If anybody's out there that wants me to write this and work with me on it,
I was gonna say screenplay right here.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
here it is, Sandra Schilling. This is what's manifesting. But what I also did, I always say 2 things. I founded lip gloss and hair extensions. Not really, but really. Before I knew what it was, I would stand in front of the mirror and I would think that I was Sandra, and I would pull my hair over this way because it was a little bit longer. So this part was Sandra. And then I would put Crest Kids toothpaste in like the red berry sparkly color on my lips and make them so big. Like I would exaggerate it around. And now everybody's like lip filler, like bee stung lips, like in these glossy colors, like MAC lip gloss. And I was doing this. I was like I was in high school. I would spend hours in front of the mirror, and I had an English accent. I was British.
Did you ever do theater?
No.
It was just
for 10 years by myself in my bathroom. And my mom also, she smoked when we were growing up, but it was like the worst kept secret. She would smoke in this bathroom. And that's the bathroom I would be Sandra in. But I picked up smoking in high school. And so I was like, I would find her cigarettes and smoke because I'm like, she'll never know I'm smoking in here.
Yeah.
So Sandra smoked it too. But
what was Sandra's voice? Can you give us a little Sandra's voice?
Oh, yes. It was like, well, I would talk to my kids and I'd be like, Pauletta, how is it possible that you're pregnant? Like, this isn't how it's supposed to be, because we were aristocratic. We were upper society London, of course. I don't know. That's like sort of what it was. But it was also so dramatic. My daughter and I would get into these fights and we'd be like slapping each other and then I'd get thrown to the ground. But it was literally just me. I would love to have had a camera on it of like me wrestling with another person and throwing myself on the ground and being like, you bitch, you're such a bitch. You know, it was like, it was intense.
Yeah. Did your family, like, would they come up and be like, what are you doing? Like, are you okay?
No, they were so checked out. Like, my sister and I joke that we raised ourselves. And so basically, so that was like my creativity.
Yeah.
That's who I was when the world wasn't around, or I would dress up in my mom's clothes. But then she would catch me and she's like, if I ever catch you doing this again, I'm going to parade you around to the neighbors, so I was like constantly shamed for really being who I wanted to be and doing what I wanted to do. And I was being bullied. And so I would slip into Sandra, and then out in the real world in like high school, I would overdeck myself out in like perfect preppy J. Crew looks. I looked like I came out of a catalog. My outsides were curated within an inch of perfection. Okay. And I did every extracurricular, and I was like, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to major in finance because that's what everybody does. And then they get their jobs at like JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Lehman Brothers, whatever, before those crashed. You know, this is back in the 90s. And so that's what I did. I got into Boston College. I was in the School of Management. I majored in finance, and I got a job in JP Morgan upon graduation. So Sandra Schilling, off to Doug, off to banking, done.
Sandra didn't come to college?
She did not come to college.
Okay.
It's funny, and I've done like an open mic where I've talked about some stories with her, and literally, I don't know where she went. It literally was like, she just disappeared. There was no ceremonial goodbye. Oh my God, I feel emotional talking about this. There was no ceremonial, emotional goodbye to her.
Yeah.
I just stopped. And I don't know why, and I don't know when. I don't know what her last, I don't know what her last episode was on her final season. But
wait, now you have to write it.
Probably because we'll pick it up.
Yeah, you're gonna pick it up in the screenplay.
When I told people stories of this, they are like dying. I mean, it was good. The things, I was so creative when I was so much younger, and I'm creative now, but I often think I don't tap into it enough. So maybe there's a reason why I'm talking about this now.
Right.
Because we're talking about the path, and the path's not always clear. I know Sandra's a part of me. I've told stories about it. People love it. But yeah, maybe there's something more there.
I mean, is this also the time that you started to really love skincare? Yes. In that like perfection era?
Yes. Oh my gosh. And it's funny. My mom indulged me a lot because I never told my parents that I was being bullied because I didn't want them to think they got the defective kid. And so I had a therapist in my older years that called it the shiny clown, that I was like curated to perfection, doing well in school, working my ass off, doing like cross country and track, and putting on a show almost for my parents. Like I never would tell them like people are mean to me because I didn't want them to think they got the defective kid. But I think my mom knew on some level. And so she would bring me to J. Crew like every Friday or every other Friday. And I'd get all these new outfits. I was like such a spoiled brat. But I think it was our love language at the time. I think it was like, I'm just going to give this to you. And so I don't know where my love of skincare started, but I know that my mom is always made up. There's maybe like 5 times in my life to this day, and I'm 44, that I've seen her without makeup.
Really?
Literally, yes. And she'll act like she doesn't care about her appearance, but there's no way.
Yeah.
She was up every morning putting on makeup. And so in high school, I was using her Prescriptives alpha hydroxy acid moisturizer. What's interesting about that is Prescriptives went away for a while, but now it's back. I don't know if they still make that product, but I was exfoliating. I knew the art of exfoliating when I was 17.
That's amazing.
So yes, I've always cared about beauty, but I cared about it more after college, when I was working in finance, and I was always a big drinker towards the end of high school, big drinker in college, never discovered drugs until after college.
In New York.
Okay, so left Boston College, moved to New York, got the job at JP Morgan.
That's where you're working, JP.
That's where I'm working at JP Morgan. I like checked all the boxes. And
did you feel complete or like okay at that moment of checking the boxes?
It felt like I mean, I still live in my head in a resume. You know,
Okay.
like people, I still feel society, maybe I just need to detach from it. I'm not linear, so this is going all over the place. But I do feel like society still expects certain things of people.
Yeah.
I'm old enough now that people don't ask me where I went to college anymore, but I'd say the first 7 years out of college, people ask you where you went to
For
college.
sure.
But I still feel like I do things to get the merit or the accolade of others, if that makes sense. I don't know how to describe it, but when I was working at JP Morgan, it was like, okay, I went to Boston College, I majored in finance, I have this job, and I have my friends. I was always so concerned with being popular and surrounded by people. And what I really was is just like this insecure alcoholic who's like dying on the inside, life of the party, desperately. I've always been confident, but desperately insecure. And so what ended up happening is my life just looked like I thought it was supposed to. But I wasn't a successful banker because I also discovered drugs.
Okay.
And so I was looking over.
But in that life, I mean, I don't know if this is the movies, but I feel like that just stereotypically goes hand in hand, like the finance guy.
I mean, it's not the Wolf of Wall Street.
Okay.
Well, also, I didn't have like I wasn't like an investment banker. Like I did this other part of JP Morgan where it was like institutionalized debt products.
I don't even know what that is.
No one does. And so it wasn't sexy banking. I wasn't on a trading floor. Like I wasn't like
you weren't like
some
martini
toxic
lunches,
dude, like tossing like the football back and forth when I got like a really good sale. And no, it was none of that. And by night, I was like party animal and like having fun. I always had a lot of friends. I always had so much fun. But as time went on, it was getting in the way of showing up to work on time. And then I discovered drugs, and it actually, no good success story starts with I moved to New York and discovered drugs. Like I discovered drugs like probably less than a year out of college, and within 2 years I was sober.
Wow.
And so what ended up happening, in your sheet of questions, one of the things asks like, you know, what was work life like at JP Morgan?
Yeah.
And I laughed to myself. I was so hungover or strung out so much of the time. There was this handicap bathroom on my floor. I'd have in my schedule that I had a meeting, and I would go and I would sleep on the floor for an hour.
Oh my God.
And I was showing up late or leaving early, and I had these elaborate excuses. Like, so many relatives died that I never even had. Not really. Like one time I was like, my mom's in a car accident and I can't come into work, and I was like blowing lines. So it was just ironic. And finally I got sober in December of 2003 is where I started the journey.
How did you know that you had to get sober? Was there other people in your life?
No. I hit it well. I think I hit it well, except for like a few times where I'd like disappear on, you know, family holidays. Like I'd take the car and like disappear, and yeah, a lot of uncomfortable stuff. It wasn't one of those things where friends were like, Doug, you need to
This is the
change,
problem,
because my
right.
life was so compartmentalized. It was almost like in high school I had Sandra Schilling. Like in my 20s I had, you know, front facing Doug, and then like drug den Doug. I would go out with my friends to the bars, and then we would take a cab and they'd drop me off on 29th and 3rd when I lived on 29th and 3rd. I'd wave, they'd drive up to wherever if we shared a cab, and then I'd walk down to 2nd Avenue, get in the cab, and go right back to the same bar that I just left. Yeah, and I'd go until like, you know, 6 in the morning, whoever I'd like find to take me home.
Yeah.
It was, you know, it was the perfect New York gay existence. And I got to a point where there were so many nights that I would just pray that I wouldn't wake up. Like I wished I would just die. And then there was this period in November of 2003 where I was like, I'm just going to keep doing a lot of drugs and like hope that I run myself into the ground and die. And then I woke up on December 15th, 2003, next to this guy that was like, that I'd hooked up with before. And I took one look at the crack pipe on the nightstand. And I mean, I did like whatever drugs were available. It was like, it was a lot. I think that's so funny now. Like I smoked crack. Like I used to smoke so much crack, like literally. Oh my gosh. And it wasn't very a designer lifestyle at this point, and I'm still working in banking. And I woke up and I looked at the guy and I was like, I'm getting sober today. And I literally did it. I got sober. I went to an outpatient. And for the most part, I've been sober since then. I've had a couple like slip ups, but they didn't last for more than like a day or two. And it was kind of like that lane departure thing in the new cars that it's like, you're out of the lane, get back over. Somebody's going to hit you. But I've pretty much been doing it since.
Wow.
And what ended up happening is I thought at JP Morgan, okay, I've stopped like not showing up for work. I've stopped the excuses. And then when it came time for review, the lady, my boss, Linda, at the time was like, we're not giving you a raise and you're not getting a promotion and you're on probation.
So you weren't fired. You were just on probation. I wasn't
fired, but I was like sober at this point. I'd been like sober maybe 5 or 6 months at this point, thinking my life was working.
Did you still at that point like want to be in finance? You wanted to be there? Or were you still kind of thinking elsewhere?
Here's what happened. At review time, she's like, we're not giving you a raise. You're definitely not getting the promotion and you're on warning. And she pulled out this scroll, like Santa's scroll of like all the people's names of all my excuses. But she documented every fucking thing. And when you're newly sober and you see, you know what was really going on. And like she had like the days that I was late, the excuses that I gave. And then she's like, you know, I don't think you really, what did she say? She was like, what do you want to do next? Like in this job, do you want to do this or do you want to do that? And it was the first time I was honest with somebody in the working world. And I was like, I don't know what I want to do, but I know it's not this. And she was supportive enough that she let me do like the placement services at JP Morgan. To find a job. And I did all these aptitude tests and I had a career counselor. And it's funny, I still have the binder and I still look at it regularly. The things on these aptitude tests that I was good for was broadcasting, on camera, charitable things, sales, marketing. And I do all of that in my career today. It's like front facing, on camera. Yep. I've done the reporting. And so I wanted to work in skincare, and I got a job in skincare. I was like, I'm sober now. I'm living somebody else's life. I'm not doing well in banking. It's time to go.
What was your quitting moment, though?
It wasn't even a quitting moment. It was literally I'd applied for a bunch of like account manager positions at skincare companies. This guy Anthony, the line is still around. Anthony Sosnick told me. He actually did an informational interview and he was like, you've no experience in skincare. What makes you think you can work in it? And I was like, well, I have a passion for skincare. Oh, this is what I forgot to say. I really got into skincare when I developed my drug habit because I was trying to hide how awful I looked. So I was like really using a lot of skincare. And then when I got sober, I had this like God-sized hole in me because now I'm not filling it with substances that I was like shopping for beauty all the time and just trying different things. And the byproduct of that, other than debt, is that people were like, you have really good skin. And people would come to my cubicle at JP Morgan and be like, what works? They'd bring me their products and I would like evaluate them. They'd be like, take them home and try them. And so what I ended up doing is applying for skincare jobs. And that guy, Anthony.
While you were still working?
While I was still working at JP Morgan, I started beauty writing on the side.
Oh.
And Anthony, I know, when it paid really well.
I
was getting $100 a blog post in like 2000.
Because that was like the beginning of blogs. Like that, yeah. You really had to, did you know how to code or what were you working off of?
No, I would just like turn in my article and they would publish it for me.
Oh my God.
It was like, I was writing for other people.
How did you find the right people?
So one mistake I've made, I was always writing for other people to make a name for myself. I should have been writing my own blog.
Okay.
I'd probably be like a millionaire now. But little tip there.
Yeah.
Start your own thing. Do it on your own platform. The people will come if you believe in it. Yeah, Julie Benlivy, JulieB.com. She used to have kind of this lifestyle thing in different cities, and I was like one of her writers.
But how did you meet Julie?
I don't even know how I found her. I just found something online that said looking for freelance writers, and I put together fake writing samples, and I sent them to her, and she's like, yeah, you're cool. We'll do this.
Huh.
And so I interviewed with Anthony, and he was like, you don't have any experience in this. What makes you think you'd be good? And I'm like, well, I'm very passionate about skincare. And he said, passion doesn't turn into a career. Oprah, anyone out there will tell you today, passion absolutely turns into a career, and following curiosity. And I did follow my curiosity. And I followed it right to my dermatologist. I had this Upper East Side dermatologist, and I would go for laser treatments because my insurance covered it.
No way.
And he
What
said,
kind of insurance did you have?
I know, seriously, a good one. JP Morgan had good insurance.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, I'm launching a skincare line. I'm like, oh, well, I blog about skincare. I just wanted free product. And he's like, and then I was like, well, do you need anybody in marketing? He's like, well, we're not that big, but my wife will need an assistant. And I was like, an assistant? But it wasn't an assistant like answering the phones. It was like literally like doing her job for her.
Yeah.
No offense to, we're still friends, but you know, so I was like, yes, I negotiated a salary. It was a little bit of a pay cut, but not crazy because I wasn't getting raises because I was a drug addict at JP Morgan. And I started and I was in product marketing, product development, and helping facilitate public relations. So it was like learning on the job. Mm-hmm. And I was meeting all these people because it was Upper East Side. The lady that I worked for was involved in all these charities. So I was going to like all these benefits. I was like meeting people. I was networking with people. It was like very social. This is way before social media. This is before influencers.
Yeah. You know what's so interesting though? Like you earlier described yourself as confident, but someone who is insecure. But you obviously, and is that just the confidence that you have to just put yourself out there? Because most people wouldn't like go to the dermatologist and be like, hey, I'm a blogger. Like this is what I want. Or just tell people. You really like ask for what you want, which is cool. Because I feel like most people have a little bit of a fright about what they're doing. They're like, I'm not like perfect at this. This is what I do. So I wouldn't talk about it. Like, how do you have that?
I don't even know. Like, I don't know where it comes from. But what I can tell you and everyone listening to this is that anything I've ever asked for or anything I've ever gotten, I've often asked for it. Mm-hmm. From a person or from the universe. I'm very metaphysical, and I will ask for certain things, and it's like, if I'm meant to have this or I'm interested in this, if this is meant to happen, let it happen. I have found that anything I ask for, I get. If I'm meant to. Not everything.
So with that, has there ever been a consistent like time period of asking for something from the universe or asking directly from someone that you've said, okay, this has happened in 6 months or a year or later, or has anything been consistent in that time frame?
This is where it started. So in 2000, I think, when did I get laid off? Was it 2007? Or it was like right before the financial crisis. So it must have been 2008. So I was at the skincare company from 2005 in May until like September of 2008. I think that was right when the financial crisis started happening. Like Lehman Brothers crashed and then Doug got fired. I got fired from that job. But it was not good stuff was happening there. It was super toxic of a work environment. And I just watched The Secret. Clinton Kelly. I tried to make Clinton Kelly. Do you know who that is? Like he was on The Chew.
No,
he used to be on the show What Not to Wear.
Yes.
He was like this sort of famous guy. He still is. But I remember somebody put me in touch with him because he also I think he went to Boston College as well. Or a friend that knew him did. And he told me about The Secret. So I watched The Secret and then I started manifesting things. And then I got this journal and I wrote in the journal, and I still have this journal. I wrote in the journal, talk about a path. I don't like this job. It's very uncomfortable. Please free me from it in whatever means necessary. Literally threw this out to the fucking universe. I was fired from that job in a week.
No way.
In maybe less than a week. And I also, it's like I knew it before I knew it. There was something weird that whole week. I was like packing up all my notes. Every night I would take a little bit more home because I'm like, I want everything I need.
You didn't know, but you knew.
I didn't know, but I knew. And I had a friend that was visiting me from Hong Kong, and he was staying in my apartment. And I got ready for work, and it was a Monday. And I was like, how do I look? It's my last day of work. And I literally got fired.
No way.
And so maybe I knew it was coming. Maybe I manifested it. But I wrote down in that book, like, whatever it takes to get me out of there, get me out of there.
Yeah.
And I was fired for writing really awful shit about my bosses on company email. What was I thinking? I was asking for it.
And who are you writing it to? Like coworkers?
It's funny, like patients that I had befriended of the doctor asking me if certain things were true.
Yeah.
And it was
You were just spilling the tea.
I was spilling the tea all over the keyboard.
Oh my God. And they were like, Doug, this is a company email. Like, you can't do this.
Again, I went in for them to fire me, and they had a stack printed out of all the fucking emails. And I'm like, boy, do I step into this.
I love the drama of like all these jobs that like they print it out. Like they don't pull it up. They're like, I have full stacks.
Concrete evidence. Here's where you screwed up. But the beauty in that is that really launched my freelance career. And also, it wasn't a very healthy place. And I had been out of there for maybe only a year and a half. And I was doing freelance PR for beauty companies. I was writing. I had my own column at Gawker. You know, all these things were happening.
So from the day of getting fired, what did you do? You just have this clean slate. Like, where do you turn to find these freelance opportunities? Where was your mindset?
Well, first you start collecting unemployment.
Okay.
And then you realize that your employers weren't paying into it on your behalf. But the state of New York, the good state of New York, still made right on it because I showed my pay stubs. And so thank God for that. And then here's my story of strength. I had a friend, Anthony. He actually lives here now. We just hung out recently. He has always worked in fashion, and he was starting his own fashion line, and it was 2008. And he's like, I need help, but I can pay you $10 an hour. I was probably 31 or 32 at the time, making $10 an hour off the books, messengering shit around the city. So it's like
on your bike.
Yeah. No, just on my foot. Like I was taking the subway. I wasn't like a bike messenger. It was like they were having a fancy holiday party and I had to hand deliver invites dressed up to like the Condé Nast building, to the Hearst Tower, because they wanted all the fashion editors to come to this. And he was paying me $10 an hour. And then I was doing some copywriting for some other skincare line. And I was piecing shit together. Mm-hmm. And then I got bed bugs. So I'm living in New York with bed bugs. And I'm writing. I have my Gawker column. I'm going to socialite parties in cute outfits.
And you have bed bugs.
And I have bed bugs. And I have bed bug bites on me underneath my legs.
And no one's ever had bed bugs. I had it like my first year in LA. It's so gross because you think that something's wrong with you, but it has not. It's where you're living.
Yeah.
It's where you're living.
You didn't choose it. Like
it's so disgusting. And like the little bites on your ankles. That's what I remember. The ankles.
It's the ankles. And there are pictures of me in these cute outfits. I was always known for wearing shorts with a blazer. I made it fashionable. I was wearing socks pulled up to the calves with penny loafers. There's pictures of me. Go to Patrick McMullen, search Douglas Marshall, go all the way to the beginning. And it looked chic. It was to hide bed bug bites on my fucking ankles. Like this is where we were at in my life at the time. And so what was interesting about that is I made it work. I didn't have a lot of money, but I didn't feel like I didn't have a lot of money.
But you still had confidence?
I still had confidence because I was going to these like fabulous parties and it was just kind of fun. Bedbugs wasn't fun.
No.
And I think back and I'm like, thank God I got fired from that job because I would have had to leave it anyway because my bosses, when I had to look at an apartment, they wouldn't even leave the office to let me look at an apartment. I had to take one of my apartments sight unseen because they wouldn't allow me out of the office to look at it. And then when I asked for 2 days
and
to
that's
move,
how you got bedbugs.
Yeah, that's why I had bedbugs. Yeah. Exactly, probably. And what was interesting also is I tried to take 2 days of my vacation time off to move, and they wouldn't let me take 2 days off because that was unreasonable. And I was getting really sick. Like, it was just like a toxic work environment. I just wasn't feeling well. So thank God I had gotten fired, because I wouldn't have been able to deal with cleaning and fixing life in an apartment with bed bugs if I had had that job.
Yeah.
They were so not compassionate.
No.
They're lovely people, but they weren't compassionate for things that didn't involve their lives.
And at this point, did you have like a vision of where you wanted to go, or you're just like, no, I'm just piecing things together?
The same journal.
Okay.
And I have it. I call it Dream Book Volume 1. I wrote Dream Book on it, and I manifested my getting fired. A year and a half later, I wrote in this book that an opportunity, I don't know where I come up with this. I need to do this more. I'm going to do it today. An opportunity comes out of nowhere. It's going to be big. It's going to be lucrative. It's going to be meant for me, and I'll know it instinctively.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was really getting into The Secret. And actually, right now, I'm reading Hero, which is by that Rhonda Bryan or whatever her name is that wrote The Secret, or whoever her name is. And it's a lot of similar stuff. I'm like trying to get back into manifesting, because now that I'm new in LA, I need more money to pay for parking and gas.
And parking tickets and
Parking tickets. Yes, my husband got one in the mail yesterday, and I'm like, really? And if he doesn't pay it by December 7th, they're going to double the fine. And I'm like, what do you,
insane.
like, just fucking pay it.
Yeah.
It's $63, not $120.
which is insane alone, that it's $63 for a parking
because he
ticket.
was
Like,
over parked for like 5 minutes.
oh no.
So I wrote in this dream book, an opportunity is going to come out of nowhere that's going to be lucrative. It's going to be right for me. And literally within a week, somebody that I went to high school with reaches out to me that I didn't know very well. She was in the grade below me. And she's like, Margaret is a recruiter, and they're looking for somebody in social media at Saks Fifth Avenue. And I was like, well, I don't know social media. And she's like, well, nobody does. It's 2009 at this point. And I'm like happily freelancing. I'm making retainers. I'm reporting. I have my own column. Things are okay. And so I was like, fuck it. I'm sorry, I swear a lot. I'll talk to the recruiter.
Me too.
The recruiter was basically like, nobody knows social media. And at the time, like Nordstrom, Bergdorf, everybody was like getting a social media manager. Nobody knew what it was. They hired me because they're like, you would contacts. You tweet, and you go and you have contacts, and you write about fashion, and you make video content, because I was making video content for like Guest of a Guest and like City File and whatever that became Gawker. And so after 9 interviews, I got the job.
9?
9.
That's insane.
It's insane. And like background checks.
That's
and all
like
this
way
stuff.
not necessary, in my opinion.
And it was 2.5 months.
Oh no.
It was 2.5
That's like not
months.
respectful.
I started interviewing in October of 2009. I started December 15th, 2009. It took a lot. And so it was great.
For employers out there, like, that's disrespectful of people's time. I'm just going to say that. 9 interviews is too much.
I bet it's not as crazy today. But it was a position. Well, think about it. Social media was new. So I had to interview with they called it like Full Line, which was like, or brick and mortar. And then the people at Saks.com, because they operated at the time, I don't know if they still do, as 2 different things. I had to talk to people. Advertising, marketing, PR.com, in-store stuff, because they didn't know where the social department was supposed to sit.
Right. And probably finance to talk about how they're going to pay for all this budget.
Probably.
Yeah. Full circle.
And so, and honestly, here's why they hired me, because this was interesting. They thought I was a wild card because I was freelance, even though I'd worked in corporate. They hired me because I worked at JP Morgan, and they're like, he understands a corporate culture. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, sleeping on the floor in a bathroom.
In the bathroom.
But like, they don't know that. And so, and I had to use the other boss that I totally fucked over and gotten fired from as a reference.
Oh my God.
So.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's like, people forgive me easily. I'm very easily.
Okay, I have a question.
I'm forgivable.
When you were doing this, when you were going through these 9 interviews with Saks, did you want this job, or were you going into like, if I get it, I get it? Like, I'm always curious. Sometimes I feel like you did want it.
The people at Saks are the best. I will say this till the day I die. The people at Saks are cool. It was like literally like being in a cool sorority.
Okay.
Literally, it's like cool, fashiony people that have good taste. They're hard workers. They're driven. It was a wonderful culture.
Even in corporate, it was a great corporate culture.
It was a great corporate culture.
Awesome.
I loved that job until they moved it from marketing to PR.
Okay.
And then I was handed to somebody, God bless her, who I think had her own visions and didn't know social very well, but still it's 2010. Not everybody knows social. I think she had her own plans, and I'll say it, she set me up to fail, and she knows it. And and so basically, I loved the job and I loved the people, but I was a team of one, doing the work of many, making it up as I went along, learned to edit videos, learned to shoot stuff. I was shooting stuff on those flip cameras that like have a USB built in, and I was like editing videos. I was interviewing like Zach Posen and Glenda Bailey, and I was like making it up. I launched their blog. This person was giving me these tasks that not one person could do on their own.
Right.
Like she'd be like, create a 3-month content calendar and get it to me by Tuesday, and it was like Friday. So I was like working on the weekends, and I eventually got laid off from there. But what was interesting in my life is that I had just been, while I was there, I was having some personal stuff, and life wasn't functioning well either. So it wasn't all her. She didn't all set me up to fail. I was diagnosed while I worked there with bipolar and OCD. I never knew this. I never knew I had like mental health issues. And so that did play into it. I will be honest about that. So I wasn't fully set up to fail, but things didn't go well when it was moved between departments either. And so at the time, I wasn't doing well emotionally, and that's where I discovered self-help. And I discovered like Louise Hay and Marianne Williamson.
And you're still in New York at this point.
I'm still in New York at this point. And so I get laid off from that job. And when you launch all the social media at Saks, whether or not you're good, people just assume that you are because you had to go through 9 interviews to get this job. And immediately people that like were vendors at Saks followed me.
That's
and
awesome.
They were like, will you do this for me? And so since then I have launched a lot of really big brands social media. It's like I was doing stuff for Bond Number 9 fragrances.
Ellen, right?
I still do stuff for Ellen DeGeneres' lifestyle line. I launched all the social for Bandier, which is like they have stores everywhere now and they're super successful. Rachel Zoe's Dream Dry. I've done stuff for Aveda, Supercuts. Joe Fresh, when they came into the U.S., I don't know where they are now, but like they're a big apparel company in Canada, and Flying Tiger, which is big in Denmark and Europe. So after leaving Saks, I've been doing freelance for all these like really big companies.
Did all of that come from your contacts at Saks?
In the beginning, yes, and then it became just like, there's something out there called the halo effect, where people make assumptions on you based on either what you look like, how you sound, where you're from, where you went to school, what your connections are. So people don't know that I used to like blow lines and was like leaving work in the middle of the day to hook up like at a sex club. This is what I was doing at JP Morgan. People would never know that by looking at me. They make certain assumptions. So it's like, oh, he has worked in beauty. He's a reporter. Give him the job at Saks. He's great. Oh, he launched all the social at Saks. He's probably really good. Like, I've been hired by people just assuming that I'm good. The lack of amount of things that people have checked my background or resources, I've gotten jobs without even having a portfolio, and people are like, you just get it. And I absolutely do, and I'm really good at what I do, but people don't know that really.
It's
and
that
I've been
resume
hired
effect
by people
too, huh? Like putting those names.
I spent my whole life curating my image, and it has gotten me very far.
Interesting.
It sounds awful when I say it, but
No.
it is true, and I do tell that to people because other people struggle with it. They're like, people just make certain assumptions about me, and I'm like, exactly. Like, I was with somebody recently who somebody was like, oh, we love having you around because like you're just like, you're fun and you're good looking. You should, in 2021, don't say that to somebody that works for you because that makes them feel very uncomfortable. But I'm like, yeah, that sucks. But at the same time, that's the halo effect. And
so how do you create that?
You have it.
Oh, thanks.
It's an energy. It's an energy. physical, like, I'll be honest, like, physical attractiveness plays into it. Like, and I don't have too many qualms saying that because I've worked in the beauty industry. I read magazines. I'm an influencer. I look at other people. This is a looks-driven world. As much as we have body positivity out there, like, and all these things, and it's so important and it's so good. But at the end of the day, like, people want slim, good-looking, like, I don't know where I'm going with this. I hope I don't get, like, canceled over it, but it's the truth. I mean, even when I worked at Saks, like, certain things just didn't fly. It's like people are used to seeing things a certain way, and brands are giving them what they want, and people make assumptions. And so I kind of knew this at an early age, which is why I was always like, I want to look like I came out of a catalog. And it was just because I wanted people to respect me and think that I was cute and good looking, so that it would take away from the fact that everybody was calling me a fag to my face or behind my back. So I was always curating my outsides. It's gotten me far in life. And I guess good genes go with it too. I mean, I'm not saying I'm like attractive, but I know how to put myself together. I know how to carry myself. I've studied it. The reason I became a party reporter is because I would read the society magazines, because I was like, these people are beautiful and they're thin and they're gorgeous and they have money and that's who everybody wants to be. I studied socialite culture like before the dawn of Tinsley Mortimer. I knew who Tinsley Mortimer was because I wrote about her before she became a housewife. I've been on vacation with her. I have learned to get on these trends. I don't know where I'm going. Like, I don't know how I'm coming off when I'm saying all of this, but I do think that my studying of it, I was like a sponge with it.
It gives you more opportunities.
I became knowledgeable on like weird niche-y things in this world. Beauty, fashion, lifestyle at like niche places.
Something that you said to me early on was that when you were working in finance and when you were like your early career, you felt like you were living for somebody else.
Yeah.
So did you feel like when you were in that path of Saks and everything, did you feel authentically yourself and that you were on the right trail?
I did, but it was also ego. Actually, I will step back and say a lot of this has been tied up with ego.
Okay.
Ego, dress to impress, what's it looking like on the resume? Then it's social media, and it's like, how's this looking on Facebook?
Right.
How's this looking on, oh, now we have Instagram. Oh my gosh, how's my feed looking? What am I wearing? What am I doing? It is all ego-driven. It's always about how am I curating my look. I still struggle with this. Even in LA, now it's like, oh, I'm in a new city. I have to have a new look. What am I going to look like? I tried the mustache for a minute. Like, who could I be? I'm not healed of that yet. I don't know if it's a bad thing. I think a lot of people still think about these things. But what ended up happening is I thought Saks was the right thing for me at the right time. But getting fired I got laid off from that job with 90 days of severance. I had just worked there a year. You don't give somebody 90 days of severance if like they hadn't screwed up a little bit too. I think it was a little bit mutual. And like, I love Saks. Like, the people there were great. I still have friends from there. It was a great place to work. It was the moment that it meant to be, and it launched me into freelance. But with the mental health struggles that I was running up against, I was in a bipolar mania for like part of that job, like for like a good 4-month stretch of that job. Mm-hmm. And that's not very productive energy. It led me to self-help. It led me to mindfulness. And that's what I do today. Like, I became a certified life coach.
Yeah, in COVID, right? Yeah.
During COVID, I started basically to deal with mental health, other than having a doctor, and I do take medication for it. I did a ton of research, and it's like there's so many things you can do outside of treating it, through meditation, through mantras, through writing things in a dream book to manifest things.
Yeah, which you had done already. You'd already been having some of those behaviors in your life of, you know, being conscious about yourself, and now you're really transitioning that into your new career here.
The path was cleared in several ways. Getting fired from jobs or losing them, or once you get a client, sometimes, after 4 months, they're like, cool, we're good. We got like the lay of the land, whatever. One thing ends, something else begins. That's good. But losing the jobs, the mental health diagnosis, discovering self-help can work for me, but also knowing that The Secret works. I believed in metaphysics. I was guided in the right places. And the more I did the work, the better that I felt. And the better that I felt, people started asking me about it. What's different about you? What's different about you? And I'm like, oh, I meditate. Here's some simple tips. I try to break it down. I try to make it easy. I try to make it approachable for people so that they'll do it, because I think in our society, people don't have time for self-care as much as people do self-care.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily have time. I break it down. I make it approachable. What ended up happening is it was working so well for me and people believed what I said. It's like I started getting asked to speak places, and then I started teaching workshops. And then what I ended up doing is getting my certification. And so I still do some marketing consulting. I do like content creation, but I'm also helping people now. So all this background, but I still try to make it look good. I still struggle with it.
Because you're saying it's like ego based, but it feels like you're really transitioning out of something that on the surface level seems a little bit less what you would call ego based, right? Or no?
Yes. Like you said, like things are revealed. Like right before we started this, it's like you're not sure what the name of this could be, and it's like maybe it will be revealed. I find whenever I do something like this or speak, new things are revealed to me. And what's being revealed today is that I do have some unresolved identity issues. I'm telling you about, like, I have the halo effect and people assume things about me, but they do. But at the same time, I still get very wrapped around the axle of like, what does it look like? Curating stuff for my Instagram or like whatever.
Well, it's hard when you're in that world.
Like? I know.
It's really hard to disassociate yourself or take a step out of that when you're living in a world that is, I mean, our entire society is very curated, but like when your job is also to be curated in a sense, it's hard to step away from that. But I feel like you do a good job at making it like authentically you.
Yeah. I mean, if I was a total mess or like unkempt, like I always say I'm like aspirational but affordable. It's like I'll wear like nice things that look nice, but they're not necessarily expensive, but I know how to put things together. But that's what sells. That's what gets you business. Like that's what gets you, invites onto things. I really do believe this. I don't know. I feel like I'm digging myself deeper in this thing, but it is true. I'm very much a consumer of like mass society fashion and beauty and keeping up with the trends, and it's still so important to me, and I do think about it a lot, and I do want to be honest that I do think about how I look, how I'm coming off. I didn't know if this podcast was going to be on video, and like I actually didn't spend that much time getting ready today. I kind of threw this together. So I'm like, all right, this is maybe dressed down Doug. My shirt is not tucked in. I'm not giving you a real look. Like my hair isn't fully done. So that's kind of ironic.
Well, I love that because I'm casual.
I'm like, podcast, no one's going to see it. But everybody films their podcast now. So, but within all of this, a lot of other life coachy or motivational speakery people that I know, they've got their Botox, they've got their filler, they've got their facialist, they do their Pilates, they drink their green juices. People give a shit about what they look like, and people think about it. And so the fact that I'm being transparent that I do think about this, I probably think a little bit too much about myself, but at the same time,
but that's your personality.
I am manifesting, I am meditating, I am helping other people, I'm trying to put good content out there, I'm trying to help people. And the more I do that, the less I do think about myself. And it's gratifying. And not in a gratifying, this looks good on my resume. Because to be quite honest, I'm not where I think I'd like to be right now. I'm new to LA. I don't have as many clients as I'd like to have. There's stuff I need to change or do on my website. It's not all clear how to do it or when to do it or am I doing enough? So I still struggle with it too.
I mean, what motivates you?
Filling my schedule. So just having this today, I had a conference call with a client early today, and that got me out of bed and knew I had this. So it's like I didn't shower yesterday. Talk about looks. Like I didn't shower yesterday. I worked out. I didn't shower. I went to bed. And I'm like, this is kind of gross, but whatever. I'll do it in the morning. And I did. I actually took a bath. I meditated and was working in the bath. But having my schedule filled, so that's why it's great that I do client-based work. When my schedule is filled, I'm more motivated. I'm more productive. I get the energy of other people. Even if it's a Zoom, like it all works out. But what motivates me is making dates with people and like sticking to them.
Yeah. It's funny. I was just listening to an interview with a CEO, and she was actually interviewing her assistant, which was an interesting fact. Yeah, it was cool because it was like tell them honestly like what it's like to be my assistant, but also she was like, what's the one thing that I need for my day? And she was like, you need a packed schedule. And I get that, where you're like, I hate like a down period of time, and that I totally identify with that. But I think a lot of other people need more breaks in their day. So I think it's really interesting how people like
the
to
more I have, the more I get done.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm totally the same. I like to be like boom, boom, boom. Like I'm a checklist person. So.
Yeah. And you know, I will just say with all this, as much as I'm like, oh, I'm like very accomplished and I did this and this and this, I'm still not where I think I'd like to be. And so I'm going to write in my dream book tonight to reveal to me like what is next. Because this is what's revealing to me in this conversation of there's more I'd like to do, and I need to focus a little bit outside of myself.
Yeah. So for you, that process, and I think a lot of people is like that, but there's no like set something here that you're working towards. It's always about revealing itself, just like being in the moment.
Yes. I could deal with a little more strategy in my life. But, you know, during COVID, I wrote a book proposal, and I haven't started shopping it out yet because I would like to get to other places before I do that, because then publishers want you more when you have a more developed platform. But I thought about it the other day when I'm like, what if I haven't done anything in a while? What am I, I'm just getting back on the ball with my Instagram, like, lives. And then all of a sudden I was like, you wrote a fucking 93-page book proposal during COVID. Like, and it's a blueprint that I can teach from. I can do, masterminds or whatever, not masterminds, like master classes and things like that, selling little like group coaching modules just from all the tools and stuff that I amassed in this proposal. I forget what I've achieved.
I think that's unbelievably hard, because I think all of us have that moment of like, you don't look at what's behind you. You look at like what you still are looking for.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Where you're just like, oh, I haven't accomplished enough, or I haven't done this enough. I think that's a really hard mental place to be in for a lot of people. But it sounds like you can kind of get yourself out of that quickly.
I have all the tools in the world. Like, if I'm sitting around and I feel grumpy and unfulfilled and low energy, I'm like, there are no excuses. This is the one thing I've learned about my life as a sober person, as somebody who has bipolar and OCD. I've done a lot of work on myself, but I've amassed a lot of tools from other healers or teachers that I follow, and I've taught a lot, and I've helped people, that when I'm sitting in my shit, I know that I can do two things. I can like grab a dance, I can grab a meditation, or I can reach out to somebody and check in on them. I mean, especially during COVID, it's so important. My dad is always happy to hear from me. So it's like, if I'm sitting in my shit, it's like if I just give him a call while I'm walking my dog, getting outside of myself, I have all the tools. And I have to remember to use them, especially in a new city.
Yeah, definitely. You can definitely feel alone. So that's amazing.
All these people in LA, and we can still feel alone.
Oh yeah, it's the loneliest little city ever, right?
The lonely. I don't know. Yeah. So far, so good.
No,
I mean,
great.
I've only been like 2 months, so I haven't felt super lonely yet. It's weird. I don't know what other people's experience of moving to LA is like, but I don't feel lonely. I don't feel like this. I thought I was going to feel like a loser to talk about. I thought I was going to feel like a loser in LA that didn't really know anybody and that wasn't connected, and that I would have to like reprove myself in the city, because there was so much ego involved in living in New York and leaving New York to go to Minnesota, leaving a smaller city to now come to a bigger city. What was it going to feel like? Was it going to feel pressure? I don't.
I love that.
So maybe that is where the work is working. If it was 10 years ago and I was moving to LA, I would have been trying so hard to be impressive. And now I'm just enjoying my time here. And I do know some people where you reached out to me and you were like, I love you because you were like, I want to be your friend and I'm going to be your friend no matter what. And like, you did it. Yeah. We're doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that. And I do feel like I've been pretty easy on myself in LA of not like trying to be friends with everybody or whatever. But I will say my one claim to fame is I did meet Tinks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
2 weeks ago. Yep. I'd only been here 6 weeks.
Yep.
I got invited to a party where Tinks, it's me Tinks was, and I got a selfie with her. And I was like super awkward and fangirling with her. But in my mind, I'm like, I need a selfie with Tinks.
But I feel like
for
in
my
LA,
Instagram wall to let everybody that follows me that doesn't really know me personally, I'm making in LA because I met this like really big influencer who's huge on TikTok.
But I think that's the thing about LA too, is that if you don't care or you don't try and you're just like, this is who I am, that's when things come more often, because everyone stereotypically in LA is like searching for something or asking for something, but in a really kind of nasty way. So if you're just like, this is who I am, this is what I want to do, like people respond to that is what I'm trying to say.
I didn't even have to ask, because one of my clients also helps out with Brandon Maxwell stuff. And so she was in LA and I was like, and she's like, we're having an event here, but I knew Tinks had been at his fashion show in New York. So I was like, is Tinks going to be there? And she's like, she is. And I was like, I knew it.
You're like, I'm here.
I knew it. I'm going to get that picture with her. Why not?
I love it.
So things are happening here. And, you know, just having this conversation, I have changed. I think me showing up to LA is a lot more chill than who I might have been. Even when I moved to Minneapolis, I was like running around trying to prove myself to everybody and make friends with everybody and exhausting myself.
Yeah.
But I became a motivational speaker and life coach there. So it like worked. Like, all my desperation and all the times I've been fired and all the times that I've been like self-absorbed or in my head, it has led to something. Even when I screw things up, they have meaning. And so with your point of like, where is the path? It's like, it's there. And just because I fuck stuff up doesn't mean I'm not going to stay on it. That's the part that was just redirecting.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't, I don't think anything has to be linear in any type of point. But at the same time, I think sometimes I definitely see the linear path in your journey thus far.
It makes sense.
It does make sense, but it doesn't
does.
also have to appear linear to the outside world, because most people, I think you can see your own path of looking back and like, oh wow, yeah, you're right. This was meant to be along the time.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes. There was this one person, this on-camera coach, Barbara Barna Abel. She's great. And
she's in Minnesota, right?
No,
she's in New York.
She's in New York. Do you know her?
Yeah, for some reason, why do I know her? I might have done one of her. Does she do classes?
She does.
I might have done one of her classes. I know I'm like friends with her on Facebook. That's why I know this person.
Barbara Barna.
Yeah.
Barbara Barna Abel told me when I first met her, and she looked over my resume, and she's like, you've done so many amazing things once. And it was like a hot knife through butter. And it was like, fuck, she's right. Because
Did she mean that negatively?
She meant it with, you're so talented, pick a lane and be consistent with it.
Huh. That's very host coachy, by the way. That's very like, I feel like I've heard that from the hoops. I feel like I've heard that from so many people. But did that hit you hard in a negative way?
Because she was right.
Okay.
She's like, you've done so many amazing things.
But why is it bad to do like a million things?
I think she was, actually I'd have to like re-investigate that too. I think that what she meant with it at the time was you could be further along if you just like chose this.
Sure.
And that thing that she said, it still holds true about certain things. When I get apathetic and when I don't stay consistent. Mm-hmm. So I'm learning a lot about myself in this podcast episode.
Yeah. I mean, I've told you, people always say, like, you're really interesting to me in, like, a really condescending, nasty term. But I get it. Why, they're probably not meaning to come across that way. But with deep down, it can definitely be, like, a point of insecurity.
What I love about you is that you're alive from the inside out. And I see it in your eyes. Like, even when you're not smiling, you're smiling. Oh, and there's something about you that is fire. And
I am an Aries.
And you're an Aries, and so am I. Oh. And maybe people I feel like sometimes people don't get it, or they don't get me. Mm-hmm. And I have learned at my age that it's like awesome. My mom always says if somebody doesn't like me, they have poor taste.
I love that.
So it is, yeah, it's interesting, the feedback that you can get in this industry.
Yeah. I feel like we should just like end it with that. I love that.
Yeah.
Anything else that...
No. I've overspoken.
I love that. That was a great ending. All right. Well, thank you for joining for episode 1. Doug, you're the best.
You are. I'm so excited to be your first guest. This is huge for me.
I know. I'm so excited. This is the perfect first guest. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep doing this. We're going to keep telling people stories. I mean, Doug, maybe you'll come back on later on and
once I
tell
figure
us
out
more.
my path.
I mean, like a year from now, LA. I want to hear the LA update. That'll be great.
That's like such an amazing angle that if this is about the path or the unknowns or the undiscoverables, everyone loves a like, where are they now story.
A follow-up.
Yeah, I'll see you on November 30th, 2022.
Oh, I love that.